I'm so excited to welcome you again to my second session of Passport to Poetry, making poetry accessible to students and teachers alike worldwide. William Blake's Chimney Sweepers, weep or sweep? Without realizing it, we might have picked up an idealized view of chimney sweepers from Disney movies and the like, where the chimney sweepers are presented with rose-colored glasses. The picture of a little boy that we see here, for example, is not a relic of historical fact, but a photo from a costume party. As we see in this photo of Bert from the movie Mary Poppins and throughout the movie itself, the chimney sweepers are not only okay with their job profile, but literally dancing on the job. Their job is romanticized. The fact that chimney sweepers were mainly 5 to 10-year-old boys, since they were small enough to fit into the very narrow chimneys in England at that time, is terrible. Mostly homeless or ones bought from orphanages or destitute parents, these young kids were subjected to nothing less than slavery, working from early in the morning until late at night with 1 day off a year. They had no protective clothing or masks, so they acquired and endured many serious, even fatal health problems as a result, and suffered many injuries. As we know from the last session, Blake was deeply concerned about the situation with so many orphaned children in poverty that were forced into child labor. By juxtaposing the two poems, one from the innocent point of view, one from the experienced point of view, he drew attention to their plight. Charles Kingsley, who wrote The Water Babies, a fairy tale for a land baby, also spotlighted this issue when he published this book in 1863. In 1875, thank goodness, a bill was pushed through to put a stop to this atrocity. What we see here is Blake's own artwork. Let's read the poem together. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tom Dacre, who cried when his head, that curled like a lamb's back, was shaved. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was a-sleeping, he had such a sight. The thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river, and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark, and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not feel harm. Let's get to the close reading, which is very interesting. So I asked you last time how to consider how does Blake use figurative language to link his first chimney sweeper poem to Songs of Innocence. As a reminder, I have uploaded a small video about figurative language. It's called In a Nutshell, Figurative Language. What are the biblical and societal allusions we need to know in order to understand the message here? And how is this underscored by rhyme, sound, meter, and rhythm? Starting with the title doesn't help us too much in this case, since the twin poems here bear the same title. The first quatrain, that is a verse of 4 lines, alludes to a very common scenario at the time. A boy who, after losing his mother and being sold by his father, as we see in green, becomes a chimney sweeper when he was so young that he could barely talk, as we see in yellow in the first 2 lines. Tongue, in line 2, is being used as a synecdoche to represent his ability to speak. This is all told from the perspective of a little boy, as we can see from the use of my 3 times in the first 2 lines, highlighted in dark green. The second quatrain, that is the second stanza of 4 lines, alludes to the lamb again, to his own poem, the lamb in the same anthology, and simultaneously also evokes all of the lamb-related associations that we touched here already. Innocence, purity, the fact that lambs, just as young boys, are vulnerable, considering that they can be shaved at the hand of their owners without their permission. Tom Dacre's head is compared to a lamb's back in a simile, and his hair is very deliberately mentioned as white, like that of a lamb. Like a submissive lamb, Tom quiets down in the first line of stanza 3. All of these references are marked in yellow. The setting begins with urban chimneys and soot in the first 2 quatrains, marked in gray. This is followed by the image of thousands of chimney sweepers who are locked up in coffins of black in stanza 3. A clear metaphor for chimneys that are responsible for their premature, brutal, and/or inevitable death and suffering, marked appropriately in gray. In the 4th stanza, preempted by the transition to a dreamlike state, as indicated by and that very night, as Tom was a-sleeping, he had such a sight, in lines 1 and 2 in stanza 3, marked in turquoise, the image of natural pastoral setting takes over, once the angel unlocks them from the coffins, as indicated by the green plain in line 3 of stanza 4, as well as by the fact that they wash in the river and shine in the sun. The mood is light and carefree as they leap, laugh, and run. Furthermore, the allusions to the angel in stanza 4, marked in red, definitely seem linked to a passage in Revelation in the Bible, which speaks of an angel having the key to death and Hades, perhaps opening the way to paradise. The 5th stanza seems to bring all of them back to their original, pure, and perhaps heavenly state, indicated by the words naked, white, rise up on clouds, and sport in the wind. The angel then speaks to Tom, telling him to be a good boy, so that he would have God for his father and never want joy, a traditional concept presented by some in Christianity. Want could mean need or lack here. It carries a double meaning, probably for the sake of irony. In the final stanza, after Tom awakes from his dream, he and the narrator return to their regular duties in the real world, their urban jungle of sorts, and Tom is happy and warm, this is marked in green, in spite of his outward circumstances. I have underlined the final line. This seems to present to all the readers an optimistic motto. So, if all do their duty, they need not feel harm. Is this just to emphasize the innocent, positive attitude of the young innocent boys? Or is it ironic, meant to stir up an upset, even angry reaction in the reader? After all, as we saw in stanza 1, line 4, it's your chimneys this little boy, among many others, is forced to sweep. As customary for Songs of Innocence, the language is relatively simple throughout the entire poem. I just wanted to mention a couple things about the form. So we have rhyme, sound, meter, and rhythm, just to show that form often reflects meaning as well. The rhyme is very standard. It's AA, BB, which I've also marked here for each stanza. The sound is catchy. There's a type of onomatopoeia, which means it sounds like what it is. For example, sweep sounds like the real sound sweeping makes. The similarity between weep, sweep, and sleep stirs up meaning-related associations. Does sweeping cause us all to weep? Meter. It's a 10-syllable line alternating with iambic pentameter and other meters irregularly. So this disconcerts the reader a little. It seems like a mixed message after all. The rhythm is not quite as soft as the lamb poem, mainly ending on masculine. That is a stressed rhyme. Let's move on to the next poem. This again is Blake's own artwork. A little black thing among the snow, crying weep, weep in notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother, say? They are both gone up to the church to pray. Because I was happy upon the heath, and smiled among the winter snow, they clothed me in the clothes of death, and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. Let's compare the Chimney Sweeper poem from Songs of Experience to the one we just analyzed. It is clear from the outset that this is a much more pessimistic poem, leading us to believe that the prior poem is also riddled with irony. For example, there is a depersonification in line 1, if you will, when the chimney sweeper is referred to as a little black thing marked in gray, perhaps the black sheep of society. Crying in notes of woe in line 2, also marked in gray, is symbolic of the compulsion to express suffering in the face of difficult work conditions, perhaps. Interestingly, it is told from the perspective of someone else who then provides direct quotations from the chimney sweeper throughout. This is marked in red. When he asks the little black thing about the whereabouts of his parents, he answers with stanza 1, line 4, which I have underlined. The allusion to church and praying, marked in yellow, highlights the religious hypocrisy in that society very pointedly. The second and third stanza is reminiscent of both Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, because the chimney sweeper, clearly a different boy from the one we encountered in the first poem, because he does actually have parents, explains why they have inflicted this terrible job on him. It is mixed with irony everywhere. The first two lines of stanza 2 use some positive words like happy and smiled in a rural setting, implied by heath, all marked in green, but goes on to say in line 3 that his parents clothed him in the clothes of death, which reminds us of the first poem, where they are locked up in coffins of black. This is a metaphor for the chimney sweeper clothes he has to wear. He is also taught to sing the songs, the notes of woe again in the last line. That is taught to get used to suffering. The first two lines of the third stanza uses happy again, along with the words dance and sing. But line 2 clearly implies that his parents have done him injury, line 2, and caused him misery, line 4, both marked in gray. The final lines are a clear denunciation of religious hypocrisy, with the references to God and his priest and king, as well as heaven, marked in yellow. Make up, which is underlined in the final line, is a play on invent and create. To Blake, not opposed to Christianity itself as such, it is pathetic, even criminal, to think that these kids could only console themselves while they dreamed, with the hope of the sweet by and by as their only incentive in life, while the ones that should have borne responsibility wore a veil of religious hypocrisy. More sophisticated language is used than in the other poem. Just to mention form very briefly, the rhyme is a bit more irregular. It has A, A, B, B in the first stanza, but switches to C, A, then D, E, D, E in the second and third stanzas. There is onomatopoeia again with weep. The line varies between 8 to 12 beats, which makes it more abrupt. Sometimes it speeds up and other times it slows down, which corresponds with the confusing message, many times seemingly positive, other times harshly critical. The end rhyme varies between masculine and feminine rhymes. Form reflects meaning here too. It is much more irregular and not as pleasant to the ear as the first poem. Please refer to my soon-to-be-released meter and rhythm and rhyme and sound in a nutshell videos for further info. And finally, here are the works cited. Stay tuned for Shakespeare coming up soon in my week 2 from the course, session 3. Look forward to seeing you there.